Hi friends, so in this video I'll be finishing up the last little bits to my Umbreon cosplay, including the skirt, tail, ears, and the sword. I actually didn't film the process of this wig because I was really unsure with what I wanted to do with it. The art by Sunset Dragon showed a beautiful long black wig that had a little bit of curl to it, so I did get one and it got tangled a lot, so I wanted to try something new, and especially since this was a competition piece, I didn't want to just like throw on a wig, you know? So I ended up crimping the entire wig, which helped a lot with managing it, and I added some tinsel into the roots, so that just got tied like right at the roots. And I did 2 fishtailed braids in the back, and I added in this moon clip that I made, and it kind of got knotted in the hair during travel, but it's fine. Anyway, that's the wig. It's super simple. Really like the way it came out. Everybody liked the tinsel. So now let's move on to the cape skirt thing. That thing, the flowy thing. First, I ordered a swatch of the velvet that I wanted to use, and I tested my heat transfer vinyl onto it since I'm going to cut out all these little stars and put them on it. I did a quarter circle skirt for the velvet since the fabric wasn't wide enough for a half. Also, I will include a circle skirt calculator and some good circle skirt tutorial videos in the description. I cut out my lining fabric and the velvet, and I sewed the velvet together at the back. I used my Cricut to cut out a bunch of these little stars and these little glitter circle things, and I carefully arranged them onto the skirt. Then I used some of my spare fabric to protect the velvet and iron on the vinyl. Once I ironed everything on, I pinned the gold trim onto the right side of the lining and the velvet. After sewing on the trim, I pinned the right sides of the lining and the velvet together, and I sew along the sides and the bottom, leaving the top open so that I can turn it right side out, and the skirt attaches with a ribbon that's tied around my waist, and that's basically the skirt. For the ears, I 3D printed an Umbreon ear shape, and I covered it in tape to make a pattern for my embossed velvet fabric. I made sure to add a seam allowance to the pattern as well. I cut out 4 of them per ear, so there's 8 total. All 8 of the pieces got the same gold trim sewed onto them. Once I sewed the covers, I started on the tail. The art by Sunset Dragon doesn't have a tail included in it, so I did create my own. I wanted it to be magical and swooshy, so I designed a curved Umbreon tail instead of the just straight down one that Umbreon has. I pinned it onto my mock-up fabric to make sure that it looked okay. It's a little lumpy, but it's alright. I then put it onto my velvet fabric. I added a bigger seam allowance because I wanted the tail to be a bit thicker than my mock-up. So I cut it out, pinned it together at the bottom, pinned the gold trim on, and then I sewed that down. Once the trim was on, I sewed the bottom together, and I left an opening at the top so that I could turn it right side out. Once I did that, I stuffed it with polyfill. Next, I squeezed the ear covers onto the ear. I added a bit of polyfill around the base, and I glued magnets onto the base, which will magnet onto the wig. I used 6mm EVA foam for the base and core of the tail. This just helps keep it supported and nice and bouncy. I sewed leather straps onto the base of the tail, and I used ribbon to tie it on. I had some leftover beading from when I made my wedding dress, and I used it on the base of the tail. I also sewed in some pretty gold chain just for fun. The wig actually covers the base of the tail, so you can't really see it, but I knew it was there, and that's all that matters. I 3D modeled and printed this little star thing that hangs from her ear. I painted it gold and I sewed it right onto the ear. The crown is just a piece of 4mm foam with 2mm foam edging, and I 3D printed the stars and moon on it. And then that also has a magnet two magnets that attach onto the wig. The sword is basically a whole thing. I went through a lot while making it. I found a good blade reference and I heavily modified it in Blender. I have very little modeling experience, so basically all I did was make the blade wider and then I made a handle for it. I tried really hard to model the guard, but it was really difficult, so instead I traced the pattern in paint.net, printed it out, and threw it onto some 6mm foam. The blade came out to be 35 inches long and I printed it in 6 pieces. I used a spiral steel rod as the internal support. Gorilla Glue super glue was applied to keep everything together. The tip of the blade felt really weak, so I heated up some of those little melty beads and I remade the tip, and then I just blended it into the 3D print. Next, I assembled all of the pieces together. To hide the seams, I used quick seal, smoothed it out, and sanded it once it was dried. Then it was time to build up the guard. I cut out the front and back, which would basically sandwich the handle between the foam. I used my rotary tool to clean up the pieces, and then I blasted them with heat to seal them. I 3D printed 2 moons for the middle of the guard. And before I attached the moons, I did glowed all the pieces together. Yes, glowed. The pommel was this moon 3D print that I actually got from a Sailor Moon file. You could probably recognize that. And I used one of my cat's ping pong balls as the little ball thing in the middle. I primed the sword with black plasti dip and I hand painted it starting with the guard. I painted that yellow first and then a metallic gold. The blade was painted silver with no weathering. And as you can tell, I got really picky about the blade and I sanded it. I did that like 5 times until I was satisfied with the seams. I did a tad bit of shadows on the guard by doing some brown dry brushing, and that's it. I wanted it to be nice and clean, so there's no weathering or anything here. And then I wrapped the handle in gold trim. And that's it for my Umbreon cosplay. Huge thank you to Sunset Dragon for this beautiful design. She has an entire line of Evolution Knights, so if you want to make one and you're stuck and you want a really good competition piece, definitely check her out because there are so many beautiful elements in all of these designs. And I won Best in Show in this cosplay, so I'm very proud of it. It turned out really good. Also, thank you to the Foamory for supplying the foam for this build. And I will see you guys later with my next build. Bye!